Now these are very simple geometry. I like that. So we usually start the audit by saying we're very nosy. We're going to look everywhere. So
good. Please do.
Knows, Chris.
yeah, it does. It does know. A bit musty for sure.
Definitely
Huh?
musty. How long has this not been lived in, Craig?
I don't really know the answer to that. The people that owned it before Bob and Cheryl were Canadian. They were from town and spent time here. I don't know. These were their homegrown efforts to fix some things or change some things.
Ah, it's just a...
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Okay. Well, I love the geometry.
Oh, good.
So we have a ceiling here that's likely these tiles have
Possibility of... Well, those are just
Directly-
sound tiles.
well, what if they're just directly applied?
We'll see.
This height here is less than 8.
But that also has tiles.
Yeah, but then
So when we get in here, we can see the difference. That is from the edge here. That is about the same height. From this height right here.
Yep.
See how the two of them connect.
Yep.
So spray foam against the chimney is always a good idea.
Do you mean that?
No. No, it's a
We kind
fire
of assumed
hazard
it-
to do that.
We
Yeah.
kind of assumed it wasn't a very good.
No, you're right. And it's just a regular fireplace. Okay, with these, oh, we recognize those.
effective vents.
Yeah, maybe with a fan here.
Now, will this be their full-time residence, Craig?
No. Actually, they'll just be here during the summer. Although they're thinking about renting it when it's rentable, and when they're not here.
So we turn on the bath fan and we listen to it. This bath fan. So not a bad move. When you're selling a house, make the bathroom really nice.
Yeah.
That's so that you can tell that that's what they did.
They
But that bathroom
renovated
sounds
this
pretty good.
just before the sale, I believe.
Yeah, feels like it.
Yeah.
It just feels like nobody's ever even been in it.
Yeah, and they obviously started working
On
on
the
the
kitchen,
kitchen. What ended up happening here, I think, though, I'm pretty sure they intended this construction for themselves, and then with the closure of the Canadian border and stuff like that, became more and more difficult. And as the property prices escalated, they began to think about selling and did. Now, here's the magic. And
Oh my gosh, this is
Why
a
does it
mixed
so much?
this is a mixed fuel.
Oh my gosh, it's just...
It's a solid fuel, and so this is a really uncommon little baby here. You can actually, unless I have it wrong, it looks mixed fuel, that you could actually burn something else in here, like wood. Yep, exactly. So it's an oil burner on the bottom with a wood box, firebox in it.
Yeah.
Probably about as inefficient as a thing can get.
Oh, great.
But you feel
Well,
that...
they don't want to keep this stuff. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
believe.
no, and we'll give them a recommendation for
Do you feel
what
how
to
hot
swap
it
it
is
in.
in here?
It's really
Yeah.
hot,
Yeah, it's warm.
and that's
in
the
here.
attic access.
And there's your
What I'm
attic
wondering here,
access.
Jim, is this mastic on the floor. I'm worried that maybe
Yes.
it's asbestos.
Those look like 8x8 tiles to me.
It does look like the classic 8x8 tile.
So, Craig, one thing is, it's just one of those markers, indicators, that when a certain size tile was 8x8, it was very popular in the day. It had black mastic on the back, and more than likely than not, it had asbestos in it. And so it needs to be encapsulated or professionally remediated, or something that needs to happen. Clay Point Associates out of Williston is a great testing agency. It's not hugely
Cheap.
expensive, but it's not cheap either.
Right.
They should test this to verify. I
Yeah,
don't know if that
before
was
you
done.
do any more work.
Yeah, did
Due
Did it-
diligence by the
This
seller.
was done prior to acquiring
so
the
did
house.
this have a home inspection done?
It did have a home inspection
Did they cite
done.
this?
We'll have to take a look at the report. If you can get us a copy of that home inspection report,
I
that'll help
will
us.
ask Bob for a copy of the home inspection report. I want you guys to have that.
Yep, yep.
I mean, it is possible that this doesn't
Perfect.
have it.
Exactly.
but-
It could be nothing,
When we see this is an indicator.
especially from a house of this age,
I
from the
was here
50s.
when the home inspector came. He seemed very competent.
Sure. No
Just-
soffit vents.
Yep. Saw that already from the outside.
You would take a look at this.
Yep, I will.
I do not
Gladly.
feel confident standing on this framing because it's not headed off. Okay, so it's just cut off. So this means it's going to flex quite a bit.
Until it hits the wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but you can see quite a bit
Yep.
up there, and there's a lot of insulation up there. It's just not in place. And then there's an
Like the insulation we saw under that house last week.
But
It was
you see-
actually literally in a roll still under the house.
Oh, good.
not that, but there's like a fibrous bat insulation, and it looks like a cardboardish type ground. So that's underneath the fiber. That was what was originally used.
Interesting. Okay.
So, Chris, I'm just curious. You're obviously making videos. Will these be available to?
I can certainly make the videos available for you.
I'm just thinking of Bob because he's not here.
Yep.
It's a nice series of events because we
So-
just started last week because of our show.
Yeah.
There's always these stellar moments that are good, as long as people.
Good news is, if we're looking up here, what are we looking for in an attic, right? What we're looking for is what's the condition of the sheathing. And looking here, we can see
He does the editing of all of it.
that the sheathing is, let me widen my scope here. We can see that there's no mold on the sheathing, right? It's not, it also doesn't smell moldy. That's really important. So these vents that you can see, the gable end vent, it seems like there's enough fresh air coming in here to allow for that all to vent properly. I mean, the house is from the 1950s and it's venting properly. That's great news, even without soft vents. So these gable end vents are working. The second question that we're going to have is how much insulation. Is there air sealing on the top plate of the top pressure plane, which here is the bottom of the attic. That would be here. This is the attic, and what we're seeing here is here are the tiles that are making up the ceiling, and here's the strapping, right? And here's the bottom of the truss, which was cut through for this particular hatch, which is not a great idea, but still. So we see this all the time. This is not going to do anything for insulation. It'll do a little something, but there's no air sealing. As I pull this back, you can see, right, here's some wires, and then we'll just go to this bay here, and we can see that we've got a 2x4, right? Let me see if I can get that better. But there's absolutely nothing between those tiles and this space, and the tiles are not very good air sealing. So it's pretty clear that there's no proper air sealing. There's no sheetrock on the ceiling. There's just strapping and these tiles. So that is going to be an interesting thing to have to figure out a good air sealing strategy, because the top plane should be air sealed. Jim, I'm gonna crawl through all the way to the other building, to the original entryway where we have the T, so I can see what's going on over there. Just so you know. This is the fun part of doing audits. Nasty attic stuff. And what do you find in an attic? Well, this is kind of scary, right? We just got electrical wires hanging on top of this insulation. Looks like there is, let me stand up in here. Fortunately, someone's been in here before. I'll widen that again so we can see what the hell we're talking about. And tell me, in an attic, if the insulation has to be in contact and contiguous in order for it to work well, what is this? This is a ball of insulation. And this is, oh, there you go. We see this all the time. There is just unused insulation. Here we go. Let me not step through the ceiling here. What kind of R value does a roll of insulation that's never been installed do? And here's more of the indication of that wood chip insulation that Jim was talking about. But in general, still, I'm looking here, and I'm not seeing any mold or any indication of any problems there. Here is interesting. This here is the chimney, right, going through. We saw that downstairs, and they have insulated it and kind of with this reflective bat stuff. I'm a bit concerned about this material. What is this material? It's a fibrous material. It's a little too new to be asbestos, so I'm not going to think it's asbestos, but if it were older, I may consider it. And why plastic on the outside of this? I'm just trying to think of that level of detail. Right, here we go. How good is that? Contiguous air shielding? I think not. Okay, here we're getting into the other building. You can see here we have the one part of the building where we have this type of roof, and then we go to this other roof line, and what we're in here now is the connector between the two roofs, right? This ridge here is the connector between the two roofs. So this is one roof, and then it becomes another roof, and it's the ceiling of this attic that I now want to take a look at, right? Okay, so let's do that and see how this roof inside is also acting. A random piece of insulation. More of the quote-unquote insulation to the attic with this plastic on it, kind of weird. And I need to get in here. So it looks like there's fiberglass, cellulose on the floor here. Right. And let's do a bit of digging. This is another fun thing. So, let me see how's the best way for me, once again, not to fall through the floor. So let's find there's a rafter, and put our foot on that one. And then let's look in here. That looks okay. I'm seeing a little bit of coloration, but it doesn't smell bad. And then we're gonna dig in here and just move some of the cellulose aside. Okay, the cellulose goes down to the back of some fiberglass insulation. And then there's the strapping. Okay, that's what we have. So we've got what looks like something on the order of 12 inches of insulation up here, which is a decent amount of insulation. We'll get a firm measurement on that. Then that goes down to the back of some old fiberglass, which then goes down to some strapping. So there's an air gap in there. Not the best assembly. Getting a bit dusty in here, as you can see. Okay. So let me see, the blocking over there. But in general, the actual attic looks okay. There's a beam. So this way we can see all of that. It all looks pretty good. Okay, so let's get a measurement on the thickness of the insulation. What we do, I'm just going to create a little hole. I just wanted to get some more video of just all these wires laying on top of and the piles of insulation. That's the insulation level. And then literally, let me see, you get a side shot of this. Here's more of it just laying around. That's the big pile. And here's another big pile of insulation. That insulation is not doing anything. And fiberglass insulation in almost every attic install is never installed correctly. Okay, that's actually very good news. So that's great news. I'm just going to take some notes here. Okay, there you go. Good news. The attic above here is also well vented. There's about 10 inches of cellulose on the flat. I didn't really take a look at the slopes because they are really short and there's no soffit, so we didn't have to worry about whether the soffits were clogged or not. It seems like the gable end vents are doing great. This also is a strapped ceiling with a layer of fiberglass on it. So that's going to make some interesting, and I got to look at the attempts at air sealing and insulating around the chimney upstairs. I think that was an attempt to reduce the warmth of the air up there to try to cut down on the icicles and ice dams.
Mm-hmm. So do you see evidence of leakage up in?
I didn't see any leakage at the. It looks like it's well flashed. So I didn't see any water damage around that.
Very good.
So it looks actually.
So in your opinion, this was simply an attempt to reduce the infiltration of warm air from this space into the ceiling.
That's exactly what I think.
Right.
Of course, it's always hard to get into someone's brain, but when I'm trying to deconstruct it, that's what I think they were doing. They're trying to air seal this space from that space.
And your general assessment of attic space, how would you summarize that?
I think the attic space is in good condition. The underside of the sheathing and the rafters are not moldy. There's no water intrusion. Right. However, there's we call the top pressure plane, where the warm air from the stack effect pushes up against, is not well defined because that tile is pretty much the only thing stopping air from going up and into it.
So does it? The spacing on the rafters, and were they 2x6s?
Now you're asking me again.
Well, I'm concerned about that because if all of a sudden this air doesn't go up there anymore and starts to leak or starts to melt the snow. Okay, hold on. So right now,
you're talking about added snow load.
Yes.
If we don't let the hot air that's doing that now melt that snow, Jim, I will honestly say that I didn't get a good measurement on that. Let me get that. I think it was 2x4s, but it could be 2x6s. Just take a quick look. Two by sixes. Yep, 2x6s on the rafters, 2x4 on the floor. The bottom chord of the say the ceiling joist, as it were.